He's talking about being transparent. He's talking about being transparent. So walking in the light will expose our sin and it will provide a means of cleansing. Now here's the question. Here's a question for us before we go on. What will we do when our sin is exposed? It's not a matter of will we be exposed if we draw near to Jesus. If I rush towards the light and I come to know Christ at a deeper level, and Paul prays that prayer for me in Ephesians chapter 3, verses 14 through 19, and I come to experience the fullness of God living in me, it's not a matter of if I'll find out stuff about myself that's unpleasant. It's a matter of when. And when that happens, the question is, what will we do? That depends entirely on whether or not we are broken. That depends entirely on whether or not we are yielded to the leading of the Spirit. If our hearts are soft, we will react one way. If we are unbroken and stubborn and stiff-necked, we will respond an altogether different way. Verse 8, the unbroken, the hard-hearted, the stiff-necked will respond this way: denial. Denial. They will draw near to Christ. They will walk in fellowship with other believers and walk in fellowship with Christ for a time, and then the Holy Spirit will illuminate some particular point in their life which needs addressing, a sin issue. And they will deny it. John puts it this way: if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. We're not living according to the truth. If we actually are arrogant enough to say that we have no sin. Now, generically, every one of us can do that. I hesitate to ask this question because I'm always scared to death in an audience that I don't know that someone will raise their hand. But, just for the sake of suicidal tendencies, how many of you think that you're without sin this morning? Thank you for not raising your hands. I was kind of terrified someone would shoot up their hand. Okay? That means that all of you are willing generically to admit that there is something in your life which could be categorized as sin. And that's all fine and hunky-dory. We can all intellectually assent that the Bible's actually true and that we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So we can all rest easy that we doctrinally at least know what that means. The problem is when the sin is actually named and it becomes very specific. Usually someone that we love or someone we don't love is the one that identifies it, and that's how we come to learn about this particular trait. It usually is revealed in the context of relationships. That's an entirely different matter. That's an entirely different matter. You see, the unbroken seem to be fine confessing generic sin, but they can't get around to naming the specific sin. One of our staff persons met with someone recently and trying to help them through a relational matter and asked them specifically if they were in fact a Christian, and this person said yes, and then they asked them, well, are you a sinner? And of course they, sure. In what way? They couldn't answer. They couldn't identify anything that would say, I'm a sinner because here's how you can see this evidenced in my life. That's problematic. I'm really underplaying that. Problematic. That is monumentally dangerous. That is evidence of a granite heart. That is evidence of an unbroken and an unyielding spirit that is totally blind and deceived to the condition of a person of their own heart. The unbroken have a difficult time confessing a specific sin. The unbroken also find And if they do confess specific sin, for example, bitterness or fits of rage, the unbroken find the first causes for those specific sins outside of their own hearts, and they put them on other people. The unbroken, in denying and saying they have no sin, will gloss over their specific sins. They will excuse their specific sins. They will blame their specific sin on others. Or they will call it human weakness. No one's perfect. I struggle with this. No one's perfect. I struggle with that. No one's perfect. But they will not call it what it is, my sin, which should be forsaken and repented of. Next week, we'll look at a lot of specifics and 4 examples on that. But it suffices to say that in a counseling ministry, you see this really, really rear its head up. A husband will confess his bitterness to his wife as he confesses her sin to her. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm bitter, but the reason I'm bitter is because you are. That's not a confession. That says that, okay, I'm going to grant you this. I have a problem with bitterness. I have a problem with anger. But, the real issue here is you're the one that's causing that. So it's not so much that I have the sin issue as you have the sin issue, and if you would fix your issue, then I would have no issue. It's blame shifting. In the garden, God calls out Adam. And Adam is hiding, and he's wearing this fig leaf ensemble, which is smashing. And he calls him out, and he said, "Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat of?" And he asks him, "Why?" And Adam says, "The woman that you put in the garden gave some to me." That's not a confession. That is not a confession. He is choosing to walk in darkness and not come clean. Instead of humbly confessing, "Yes, I rebelled in wickedness against the one command that I was given, and I have no excuse," he blamed his wife and ultimately put the blame back on God for giving his wife to him. And then he turns to Eve and asks Eve, "Did you do this? The snake that you put in the garden deceived me." And so it goes. So many thousands of years later, the woman that you gave me makes me this way. The snake that you put on this earth and allowed Satan to roam, the devil made me do it. That's not a confession. That's walking in darkness. And the unbroken live there. You see, refusal at this point to own sin always means to choose to walk in darkness and to harden our hearts. If you choose this, I want you to think right now about a specific sin that God has revealed to you in your heart this week. Probably it has to do with something about a relationship. Okay, think about that. What is it? Maybe you blew up at somebody. Maybe you're bitter. Maybe you're filled with anxiety and you refuse to stop worrying. What's the reason for that sin? I don't want a show of hands, but I'm going to take a guess that many of you right now, in your mind's eye, envision another human being. Or a circumstance. It has nothing to do, in your mind's eye, with the fact that you have chosen by volitional will to not walk intimately with Christ, and it's all your spouse's fault, it's all your boss's fault, it's your neighbor's fault, it's your kid's fault, it's the economy's fault. It's the snake's fault. That is what it means to walk in darkness. If you continue to walk there, you will continue to excuse and justify